Oh, hello. This is taking forever for it to fall in there. Today, we're going to take a look at the Throne Torture from Abominable Electronics. So Throne Torture is Abominable Electronics' take on the classic HM2 chainsaw guitar tone. It's got a couple extra little features, but it's pretty straightforward. You have your clean up top, then you'll have your bass metal treble, then you'll have your level and your drive over on this side. This activates the pedal. This is your secondary switch, which will activate the second tone that's in here. It kind of just rounds everything out. When it's just the first button engage, it's definitely that classic HM2 sound. You get like all that nasally, just kind of really disgusting guitar tone. But this almost starts acting a little bit, I'm not going to say a fuzz pedal, but you can kind of start playing some sludgier stuff on here. That being said though, I just think all of their pedals are gorgeous. I mean, look at that artwork. That's great. And then you got that there on the bottom. Looks great, but just look at the detail. Try to hit some of that light there. That is just a gorgeous pedal. Maybe I'm just a sucker for glitter on pedals with a church on fire on the top of it. But hey, who knows? But that being said, let's actually see what this sounds like. All right, so for this little run through, we're going to be using my EC1000 loaded with EMG 8185s. Going into the Throne Torture. From there, we're going into my JCM 800, into the Captor X, and that is my signal chain for that. And this is what this sounds like. And now the Throne Torture. That thing will just sustain forever, and I love it. I have this EQ'd now, how I expect most people would use this anyway, so it's bass, middle, treble, all the way up. I got the level pretty much on 10. It's backed off a little bit. The gain is maybe about 1 or 2. It's super turned down, and same with the clean, just like a little bit of my natural amp tone coming through there. Yeah, it definitely hits all those boxes of just like, it's got that nasally like sound that just kind of like grabs you and holds on. That being said though, let's just play some. It's definitely an all or nothing kind of pedal. I wouldn't recommend this pedal to everybody. That's for sure. It's kind of a niche thing for sure. It does that HM2 sound really, really well. And I really like the secondary feature. That being said though, it's almost just like a little too much at times, where I'm sure with the right EQing and maybe even just like balancing out some of that clean tone back in, it would get rid of some of that. But on that secondary switch, I feel like a lot of your articulation just starts turning into this kind of blanket of fuzz, which, you know, it sounds cool for certain stuff. Like I love whenever it sounds like my speakers are falling apart, just like... Like that sounds great, but if I want to play something with a little bit of like some melody or something underneath it, like... Like it's okay, but it's not, for me, like ideal for that kind of stuff. So I would definitely say, you know, if you're considering getting into the HM2 stuff, beware of that, especially if you come from a background more like myself, where you're used to just, you know, basic overdrives, whether it's tube screamers or, you know, the old yellow Boss brick, that kind of stuff. This is definitely its own thing. I feel like most of y'all watching this are going to already know that, but just for anybody who wants to get into HM2 stuff, yeah, just be wary, because even for leads, like it sounds okay. Like the sustain on this is nice, so it's... Like, yeah, it's decent, but I don't know if y'all could hear those pinch harmonics, but they sound a little... They start getting a little nasally, especially if you don't have that secondary switch on, like just your standard HM2. It's just so silly. I love doing that, so my apologies for beating a dead horse there for a second. Yeah, that's where I feel like that pedal shines the most. It's just power chords and single note, like kind of runs, trim picked single note type of stuff, you know, just like your traditional death metal stuff. Like I think that sounds good, but for me, once you start getting into like the slightest bit of technical playing, and I would just say stuff along like Suffocation or Cannibal Corpse, like to me, it's so flubby. It's just, to me, it sounds terrible for that kind of stuff. But for just like those single notes, like I think it sounds great. that's so brutal, and I love it. Like I said, it's all or nothing. So beware once jumping into the HM2 realm, because me personally, I've been playing guitar for God, almost 20 years now, I guess. It's crazy to say. And I just recently started messing with HM2 pedals. So for me, it was like, this is kind of a new thing, which is cool. Because they are kind of like on the upswing, I think, on guitar tones. Because they're, I would say, more than a tone, they're an attitude. And I think sometimes you need something more than just an overdriven amp to get that point across. Like a chug on this. Sure, there's no extra boost or anything, but there's a decent amount of gain on my Marshall for now compared to, or kicking on that secondary switch. You know, compared to, like, there's no oomph to it, you know. It just sounds very stock and boring, and I think a pedal like this can elevate guitar parts for sure. I would definitely recommend tinkering around with new stuff, find new sounds, play outside your comfort zone a little bit. Because even in the last band I was in, that was more of like a death grind band, neither one of us used an HM2. We used an HM2 in the studio just to get feedback, and that was it. Everything else was, I believe we recorded with my 800, one of Andy's Model Ts, and then our other guitarist used his Rocker Verb 50 and an old Yamaha TS100, both just green tube screamer of any variation in the front of it, and that was our sound. So even coming from like the grind world in my previous band, it still wasn't a pedal that I felt like I really needed. And, you know, I was listening to bands like Rotten Sound and Yacha and stuff like that, and Leached, and I was like, oh, these are pretty sick guitar tones, but for the kind of music we were writing, it didn't seem necessary for that. So I never indulged in purchasing any of these up until the pandemic hit, and you know, thanks unemployment and a lot of spare time on my hands to sit around and tinker with stuff. But yeah, I think I've kind of narrowed all my stuff down into things I can find usable in different settings and scenarios, and I think that damn, I highly recommend always exploring guitar sounds, always trying new stuff, because this pedal isn't going to be for everybody. I'm not going to pretend like it is. I'm not going to pretend like it's, you know, some sleeper pedal that everybody should have that's going to magically make them play better. No, it's super obnoxious. It's very loud, and it's extremely noisy. So if that's something you don't want to have to deal with, don't fuck with it. But I think it's awesome, and I think it's a killer pedal. All right, so with that being said, let's actually hook up my loop pedal now, and we're just going to actually play with the EQ on this pedal and see what all it can do besides that classic HM2 sound. So stick around. All right, so that was the Throne Torture from Abominable Electronics. I think this pedal's pretty cool. It gets some pretty gnarly, disgusting guitar tones out of it. Some usable, some not usable. I still think some of the unusable ones are still pretty fun. Your guitar doesn't always have to be pristine and ultra clean to get some cool sounds out of it to make a riff sound cool, so keep that in mind. I really enjoy the secondary switch on this quite a lot. I really think it helps out and just kind of beefing everything up. In the demo that I played in the beginning, I actually did 2 takes, double tracked each take. One take had this button disengaged and the other one had this one engaged. So there's a combo of the two. You get the little bit more nasally version, then you get a little bit of that kind of beefier version. They still all pretty much sound pretty similar, but I think it's pretty useful for tracking guitars with having 2 distinguished guitar tones that are still pretty similar. I think that's a good way of achieving that with this pedal here. Also really enjoy the clean. I don't mess with it too much just because I do like just the obnoxiousness of this pedal, but I have came up with some cool settings, but then just kind of keeping the clean more on 2-3 o'clock roughly, where you kind of can hear some of the pedal and you can just get like some weird frequencies kind of going on underneath your main tone, and I think that's pretty cool. But other than that, yeah, I think this is a super fun pedal to play with. It can do all of the fantastic, you know, Nasum rotten sound kind of shit, which I think is what pretty much everyone goes for if they buy one of these. So if you're looking in the market, this is gonna get the job done. But thanks for checking this out. If you like what you watched, hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and I will see you guys later. Thanks.